Who could have predicted this would happen in March 2025? Not riots, not strikes. Well, not some freak accident, but rows and rows of brand new BMWs, Mercedes, and Audis sitting motionless at US ports, engines cold, doors locked, going nowhere. These weren't abandoned cars. They were paused, frozen by a single decision made thousands of miles away inside the White House. On March 15th, President Trump signs an executive order imposing a 25% tariff on all imported cars and light trucks entering the United States. The message was simple and politically powerful. Protect American industry, bring jobs back home, make foreign companies pay. But what happened next caught almost everyone off guard. Within just 72 hours, BMW announces its freezing plans to expand its massive Spartanburg plant in South Carolina. A project valued at nearly $26 billion. Mercedes-Benz quietly halts key shipments. Audi makes the most drastic move of all, completely stopping new deliveries to the US market. Suddenly, over 2,500 American parts suppliers hit the panic button. So this raises a question no one in Washington seemed ready to answer. Was this a victory for protectionism, or the beginning of a silent industrial exodus? And the answer starts with numbers most people never hear about. BMW has operated its Spartanburg plant since 1994. It's one of the largest automotive exporters in the entire United States. On paper, it supports roughly 43,000 direct and indirect jobs and injects tens of billions into the local economy every year. But here's the part that rarely makes headlines. More than 60% of the components inside those American-built BMW X5s and X7s don't come from the US engines, transmissions, electronic control units, advanced sensors. They cross borders from Germany, Mexico, Canada, and beyond. The tariff didn't just hit finished vehicles. It hit every single component moving across those borders, every engine block, every battery module, every chip controlling braking, steering, and driver assistance. That's when the math stopped working. Mercedes-Benz faced the same nightmare in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The plant builds high-end SUVs like the GLE, GLS, and Maybach lines. Vehicles that depend on ultra-complex global supply chains. A single luxury SUV might require control chips from Germany, lithium battery systems from South Korea, precision air suspension parts from Mexico, and software modules tested in Europe. When tariffs hit each component individually, production costs don't rise slowly. They spike. Industry analysts estimate costs jumped anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000 per vehicle almost overnight. That leaves Mercedes with two bad options: raise prices and lose buyers, or absorb the losses while competitors get a free pass. But Audi didn't even get that choice. Unlike BMW and Mercedes, Audi has no large-scale manufacturing footprint inside the United States. Every A4, Q5, Q7, and performance model ships directly from Europe. Once the tariff hits, add shipping costs, logistics delays, and state taxes, and suddenly the effective price increase pushes close to levels buyers simply won't tolerate. A Q7 that used to sell for $65,000 now needs to approach $78,000 just to preserve margins. At that price, American buyers don't hesitate. They pivot to tariff-free alternatives like the Cadillac, Escalade, or Lincoln Navigator. Similar size, similar prestige. No trade penalties. Within 2 weeks, Audi announces it's halting all new U.S. deliveries, not exiting permanently, but pulling back hard. Warranty support stays. Existing customers remain covered, but no new cars are coming in. And that's when the dominoes really start falling. Across America, suppliers from Michigan to Texas lose contracts almost overnight. Companies producing leather seats, infotainment systems, steering modules, and interior electronics suddenly see order volumes collapse. Layoffs begin quietly, then loudly. The American auto industry estimates nearly $45 billion in lost production value within the first year alone. At the same time, U.S. car exports to Europe drop sharply as the EU prepares its own countermeasures. But beneath the official press releases and carefully worded statements, something much bigger is happening, because while Washington declares victory, German automakers begin moving their long-term chess pieces, and they're moving them east. In April 2025, Mercedes-Benz unveils its next-generation electric vehicle platform, not in Detroit, not in Stuttgart, but in Shanghai. Shortly after, the company announces a $2.8 billion battery and autonomous driving research center in Shenzhen, a city already known as the heart of global battery innovation. BMW follows with plans to build a massive EV production facility in Chengdu. Capacity, 300,000 vehicles per year, nearly double the output of its Spartanburg plant. Audi expands partnerships with Chinese technology firms, focusing on AI assistance, digital mapping, and in-car software ecosystems, areas that used to be developed almost exclusively in Germany. This isn't just about cheaper labor, and it's not about retaliation. It's about where the future is being built. When Mercedes designs EV platforms in China, global standards for batteries, fast charging, and vehicle connectivity are shaped there first. When BMW trains autonomous driving systems on Asian megacities, the data, algorithms, and learning curves form outside the West. For decades, Detroit defined how the world built cars. Now that influence is quietly shifting. The European Union sees it coming too. Brussels labels the US tariffs a threat to economic security. German auto exports to the US dropped nearly 8% in a single year, with projections suggesting losses could reach 15 to 20% if tariffs remain. But instead of relying only on retaliation, Europe pivots. Trade negotiations accelerate with Latin American blocs and ASEAN nations. Nearly 300 million new consumers come into focus. The message is subtle but clear. If America closes its doors, Europe will open new ones elsewhere. Ironically, even American automakers feel the squeeze. Ford reports $1.5 billion in unexpected losses tied to higher imported component costs. General Motors slashes profit forecasts after admitting that over 40% of its electronic systems chips and battery materials still come from Asia and Mexico. Protection only works when supply chains are simple. Modern cars aren't simple. And in the luxury segment, something else breaks when competition disappears. Innovation slows. Reputation doesn't form overnight. It takes 10 to 15 years to compete with brands like Mercedes and BMW at the top tier. Without that pressure, progress stalls. Meanwhile, in towns like Greer, South Carolina, the impact becomes personal. Less than 15 minutes from BMW's plant, families face sudden uncertainty. A 42-year-old mechanical engineer with nearly 2 decades in the supply chain learns his company is cutting 30% of its workforce. Orders from BMW are down more than 60%. I've got 2 kids in college, he tells a local paper. I don't know if I'll still have a job next month. The same story plays out in Alabama. A leather seat supplier, once producing 2,000 units a month now, barely manages 700. Entire shifts disappear. Dealerships in Los Angeles, Miami, and New York run dangerously low on inventory. Customers who placed deposits months earlier don't know when or if their cars will arrive. Some dealers flip to selling used vehicles at inflated prices because supply is so tight. And then comes another problem few expected. After-sales service. Audi promises to support existing owners, but replacement parts now face the same tariffs. A V6 engine that once arrived in 10 days now takes up to 2 months. Repair costs surge. Some owners panic sell, worried parts might become impossible to source. Even BMW dealers start feeling it. One Texas dealer reports April sales down 40% while cars sit longer on lots. Customers ask questions dealers can't answer. If I buy this car, they ask, will this dealership even be here in 3 years? Some smaller dealers quietly begin switching to Japanese or Korean brands just to survive. And while all this unfolds in America, the atmosphere in China couldn't look more different. In Chengdu, thousands of young engineers line up for BMW recruitment. In Shenzhen, German engineers relocate to work alongside local teams at Mercedes R&D centers. A 28-year-old software engineer in Shanghai puts it bluntly, 5 years ago, we learned from the West. Now they come here to learn how we build electric vehicles. So the real question isn't who's winning this tariff battle. It's who's shaping the future. History has seen this before. In the 1980s, Detroit believed protectionist policies would secure dominance. Instead, Toyota and Honda surged ahead, not through cheap prices, but relentless quality and innovation. Now, in 2025, the risk is repeating that mistake at a much larger scale and far faster pace. The 25% tariff may deliver short-term political wins, but in a global economy, no wall is high enough to stop the flow of capital, talent, and technology. BMW, Mercedes, and Audi aren't leaving America tomorrow. They're executing long-range strategies, stretching 10 to 15 years, shifting investment, moving research, redirecting innovation toward regions that welcome them, and increasingly, that place isn't the United States. American consumers face higher prices and fewer choices. Workers face instability. Automakers lose the pressure that forces them to evolve. Europe adapts. Asia accelerates. So the final question isn't whether German automakers will come back. It's this. When America realizes the future of the auto industry moved on without it, what will Detroit do to catch up?